It's the leader's job to lead. If you're not up to that, get the hell out of the role.
This is a landmark moment in the Metacast, my friends.
And
You were here. You heard it live. You saw it happen.
you have to activate you have to activate your spine and activate your courage. All right, because you're a leader, and we need leaders during this time of upheaval, and we envision that you can do that. Entry music. Da, 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 da. It's the Bob and Josh Show.
Times are changing, my friends, and that means there's going to be hard questions that you must answer as a leader. And there will be times when the answer you need to give is also the one that the people around the table don't want to hear. So what do you do? How do you manage that? Today's episode is all about courage. Bob, when you think about courage, what do you think about?
You just set me up, and you did it on purpose. Well, back to my roots of courage. Cowardly Lion, everyone. Yes, I'm emoting the Cowardly Lion from The Wizard of Oz. I always think of that. I'd like to add some boldness, truth telling, right? Sort of leading, Josh. And I think there's a lack in current leaders. There's always been. I've always seen it. I'm probably a stupid leader, and you've known that for 20 years. But I do think about fear. I do. I think about, can they handle the truth? What's going to happen? I do think about those things. But the stupidity for me is I say it if it needs to be said. I've always been that way. I've always tried to be genuine. I've always tried to, if the board comes down, if I was leading an AI engineering team or an engineering team now, and AI was positively disrupting our methods and our processes and our apps and things, and the board, we talked about this. The board was excited and putting undue pressure on me to whack 50% of the team in 2 days. If I felt I could do that, I wouldn't be afraid. If I felt that was the right decision, I would do it. But if I felt that was the wrong decision, which the way I set it up is the wrong decision, then I would push back. And I wouldn't change my ground. And I wouldn't try to provide an 18-page thesis or anything like that. This is my job. If I was the chief technology officer, if I was a lead, leadership of engineering, it's like, this is what I do. You hired me to do this, and this is I try to be open-minded. I try to not be perceived as, change resistant or, sort of defensive, but at the same time, I would push back. Now, that said, I see very few leaders that do that for a variety of reasons. They're not necessarily bad leaders. They're not bad. Let me say it this way: they're not bad people at all. But those conversations rarely happen.
Yeah, those are the hard moments, and I certainly have a journey in my leadership career where early on I was not as courageous and bold as I knew I should be because of all the common reasons. I was scared and I backed down, and there were moments that I lament of how I handled them. But each one of those mistakes lived in my brain and drove me to not make that same mistake again. And then I really accelerated my courage and boldness as a leader when I went out and became a consultant, and I knew that people hired me to solve a thing, and they hired me to solve it quickly and decisively. And I had a 2-month window to make something happen, as opposed to like, oh yeah, that's something that I'll tackle, and by 2030 we'll have it sorted. No, I was brought in to address an issue, solve a problem, and get it done in a rapid amount of time. So therefore, I had to take the shackles off that and they weren't real. They were ones I made up in my head.
Exactly.
This is holding me back. I'm like, man, like I can't operate that way anymore. But then that stayed with me because I realized that that's what the company needed, and oftentimes that's what the company wanted, and they needed that boldness and that this is who we are now. This is how we're making this happen. And that changed me. And that was one of those things where I'm going to have to say it. Bob was right. Bob pushed me years and years ago, like, hey, you should do more consulting. You should do more of this because it helps. It helps you grow. And it did. And it made me a better leader without a doubt. So there's that's my journey, and that helped me figure it out. I certainly didn't get it right every time. And as I mentioned, there are times that still live in my head where I'm just, man, I really screwed that up because I wasn't the strong leader that my team needed. And it frustrates me, and it'll frustrate me forever.
I think there's different levels to it too. So I think there's easy courage. So let's go down, up, and sideways. If most leaders are very courageous downward to their team, right? So, and I think that's easy. That's an easy courage. Push people around, motivate them. We got to be doing this. I think I think up is most, and you use the word afraid or fear, and I think it is fear. I think it's fear. If we dug down inside ourselves and why don't I do this? It's a fear factor. Then there's, I think, a fear/laziness factor where being clear, being true tellers to your peers, sort of that lateral thing. The laziness there is, it's my silo. I don't have to worry about Josh's. I'm the QA guy. I have great QA. It's the dev guy, Josh, that sucks.
Yeah, it just keeps giving you crap.
He keeps giving me crap, yeah. which on one hand keeps me a job, having a job, but on the other hand, right, they suck. Yeah. So peer to peer is that truth telling is hard in a different way, right? It takes time, et cetera, to coach. But all of them, I think, great leaders do all of those things. They do down. They have the courage to do down. They have the courage to do sideways, and they have the courage to go up. And they overcome that fear. Often in the Metacast, you do a great job of this, Josh. You try to provide practical, here's a tool, here's a tactic. I don't know if there's you can correct me, I don't know if there's a tactic here, Metacasters. It's called suck it up and overcome the fear, because it's the right thing to do. I don't have a big bank account. So all through the years, I was afraid. I've lost jobs, not immediately in the moment, but I've lost jobs by having these conversations. And it's not like I had a safe landing or 28 opportunities in the wings. I was afraid too. But at the same time, there's this inner voice that's telling you, I have to overcome that. We've talked about that. It's the leader's job to lead. If you're not up to that, get the hell out of the role. But it's your job to, in this case, instigate yourself over that hurdle so that you're speaking truth. You're speaking your truth. You're speaking your genuineness in your voice and letting yourself do that.
Yeah, I've told the story on episodes before about how there was one year that I dedicated myself to getting better at managing up. And I leveraged Bob. I said, hey, Bob, this is the thing I want to do. I'm not sure how to do it. I need you to help me. And when I look back at it, there were no tactics. There was no magic wand where I used different words or I said something in a different order. It was just, I had to decide, this is a problem I have. I'm going to fix it. And the only way out was to say the uncomfortable things. And there's a moment that I talk about where for the first time in my career, I told my boss no. They said, hey, we need to do this. This has to happen. And I said, we can't do that. We don't have the capacity because of X, Y, and Z. If we want to do that, we have to not do something else. So there has to be a choice made. And I walked into that meeting, kind of cringing as the words were coming out of my mouth. And then I was surprised. I shouldn't have been, because this was a good leader, right? They were thoughtful and cared, and they heard that, and the response wasn't, "Are you freaking kidding me, Josh?" Which is the story I told myself.
Yeah.
That was the story I told myself. But what happened was, okay, what are our options then? And so we talked through it and we worked through it and we landed in something that would work. It was different than it started, but we were able to build a solution that achieved the goals. Not every goal, but achieved the most important goals. And so we were able to work through that. And as I've been on that side of the table of the leader of leaders, I've tried to really lean into that. And I hired you for a reason. I hired you because you're an expert in this thing. So I need you to tell me whether I'm crazy or not, because I might be. And sometimes crazy is good, but there's sometimes where crazy is in fact crazy and you should not do it. So I certainly have, I thought there was a magic set of words that I could use, but there weren't. It was simply just, you had to gird your loins and go and say the thing.
Oh my God. Now I'm frozen. Gird your loins. All right. I'm speechless, Metacasters. I know that.
It only took like 500 episodes for me to cause Bob to be stuck. He's frozen. I did it.
I even forgot what I was going to say. Jesus.
Oh, man.
Josh, pick it. I was going to say something. Oh, man.
Yes.
You girded me into the corner. I don't. Oh my God!
Wow, this is a landmark moment in the Metacast, my friends. Were here. You heard it live. You saw it happen. You're still seeing Bob. I broke him finally. 500-ish episodes.
No, it's not. I'm serious. Josh, pick it up.
You need to figure something out to say. Okay.
No, I can't.
I can't. Well, no, you're asking me to do that. Okay, so another thing that it's your responsibility, and that's the mental model that I have in those moments, is that this is my job. My job is not to build the thing anymore. There's times where my job is to be the inspiration, the encouragement, the one challenging for us to do new and different things. But then there's also times where I have to be the shield and I have to protect. And that often requires a discussion with somebody, a peer leader or your boss or the board or something like that, and saying things that you expect to be received poorly. And that's the transformation that I've had to make over the years, is stop guessing what the response is going to be. Because humans tend to fill in gaps of knowledge with the worst case scenario, because it helps you live. Right? If you go back to, we're living in the jungle, we're living in the wild, we're living in the forest, it's helpful to paint the worst picture so that you don't end up in a bad situation that you won't get out of. But that's not true in the world we live in, the business world that we live in. That's not the way it is. So I've stopped pretending I know how it's going to go, and I assume positive intent, both when I speak things and when things are heard, the words that are coming out of my mouth. So that's helped me. Does that blow up in my face at times? Sometimes, but not as often as you would think. Okay, Bob, have you found your thing?
No, but
no. Okay.
No, I lost it, but I've girded my loins.
Okay, good.
No, I was going to say, we're afraid of the outcomes. There's fear and things, but then it's like, do your job. Our job. So Metacasters, we're not saying practice no all the time. What we're saying is honor your intuition, honor your inner voice. If your inner voice is saying this is a stupid idea, then what we do is we filter that. Oh, will they like me? Oh, will I lose my job? Oh, I said this yesterday. And there's all these mental filtrations that we do. I'm suggesting get rid of those. And, if you like, that's the speak truth to power. I always think of it as blinders or window blinds, where you move the blinds and they're totally 100% dark, or they're totally, 100% open, or they're shades of 1 degree, open and closed. And so when I think of myself, I think of that metaphor, and how much of the blind. So if I join it, if I don't feel safe in a job, or if I feel threatened, I close the blinds and I filter what I'm going to be saying. And I do it consciously and I do it subconsciously. And depending on my role and my comfort and my boss, I'll open the blinds more, which means I'm opening up truth. I'm opening up my genuine thoughts about the matter. That's in an engineering role, etc. I think when you get into a leadership role, you have to open those blinds pretty wide. You have a responsibility to do that, and no matter what the situation is, right? Otherwise, you're not being true to yourself, and you're not being true to the role of your job. You're not being true to your teams, the folks that are depending on you. So that's I think the essence of what we're talking about is manage those blinds, and just let your true thoughts come out. There's a lot, and everyone. Oh, I grabbed my thought back. I'm glad I found it. So as a leader, if someone doesn't push back on me, so I reserve the right, and I'm not the greatest leader in the world, but I'm not bad, and I have a shit ton of experience in non-agile and agile. But as a leader, I reserve the right to put pressure on the organization. Right? I reserve the right, like if Josh worked for me, he would probably hate me because I would put pressure on him. I would put date pressure. I would put scope pressure on him. I would put innovation pressure on him. I would put quality pressure on him.
Oh, bring it on.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, you think you can handle it? Yeah, you just wait. And so I would put pressure. And if he doesn't push back, let's use features. If I say we need 50 features, and he just bounces, okay, and he goes, I'm like, okay, he can do that. He can easily do that. I'll push 25 more on him. Josh, can we have 25 more? Now we're at 75. And he just not, you sure? We can do, kind of, it's a little, but yeah, we can do that, right? I'll push 100 on him. I'll push 125. What am I expecting? I'm expecting Josh to give me, he hasn't given me any pushback yet. I'm expecting pushback. It would be like a contractor in my house. Until you push back, I figure you have the capacity to do something. And so I'm going to continue to ask you to improve processes, etc. To me, the essence point is that pushback. I don't look at that as negative at all. I'm like, finally, we've hit nirvana, right? And we can have a discussion, right? But if you don't have these discussions, I think it breaks the system. We don't, because a lot of these discussions are like stupid design decisions or capacity dissonance, right? Or quality disconnects or customer disconnects. These are major things. But if you're always like willy-nilly about, again, not all leaders' boards can handle it. But I think to Josh's story earlier, more can. But we have to engage in that. I've said this to people, that left, that did the happy-go-lucky waltz, and I'm like, I'm going to keep pushing on you until we have a discussion about trade-offs, right? It's the only way I can operate. I'm not trying to be insidious. I'm just saying, then we get to a point where we have trade-off discussions. Josh, any reactions?
Yeah, I think we're going in the same direction there. One of the things that over the years I learned is, as is so often, any disagreement is really just a lack of common shared knowledge. So you walk in saying, hey, we can't do a thing because of X, Y, and Z. and you're expecting that person to be like, I disagree with you and you're wrong, so I win and you lose. Often what happens is that person hears that information for the first time. It's like, oh, really? I didn't connect those dots. Okay, I understand how the system is broke. How do we figure this out? Let's talk it through. And there's a lot of assumption that we make that there's knowledge on the other side of the table that may be inherent to you and obvious to you, but you are living in a different world and working with different lenses and seeing different things every day. That, just as Bob said, that leader's counting on you to say like, whoa, like we're breaking the system. And trust me, that leader wants to know when things are breaking and is expecting that if you're not saying anything, they're not breaking and everything's just peachy and we're shipping great features and the quality is good and on time and all of those things, right? But that simply is just a lack of knowledge, and it's not their fault. That's your fault, because you need to be providing that visibility and saying, this is working, this isn't working, this is how I'm tweaking the system. This means we actually can't do as much as we've wanted to because of these new variables or something like that. So that's the job, is to identify the disconnects within the system, put them on the table, and figure out what we as a leadership group need to do to address the issue.
Absolutely. In all seriousness, Medicus, I love those discussions. I mean, I may not love some of the implications sometimes, right? There's business, oh shit, I have to have a conversation with the board or the CEO. But at the same time, I'd rather have those conversations than not have those conversations, right? That's the point. There's tension in the system. I want to get to that. Let's talk about the tension. Let's resolve the tension. Let's figure out what to do. And that's counter to, I think folks are avoiding that. So maybe one of the tactics is to look at those as, it's not drudge. Look, get excited about those tension-based discussions with your leadership team. That's the meat and potatoes of collaborative leadership, I think.
Yeah, because every time you come out of that, your company's in a better spot. Better's hard to define, but there's more clarity, there's more understanding. It doesn't, maybe there is a fundamental problem with the business, so you might be making less money, but you're in a better spot to regain that revenue that you were going after that you weren't able to get or something like that. But now there's a unified view, a clear understanding of what is and isn't working and what we're going to do about it. And now everybody can go make that happen and celebrate together when you achieve the thing, as opposed to silently swallowing the problems and then surprising somebody when things don't go as well as expected because you didn't say something about it.
So let's bring it back to current reality, Metacasters. There's two things in play. Agile. Death of Agile, Agile's not working, whatever, that Agile universe that we've talked about for a long time, and then AI. And so Agile strategies, transformational strategies, artificial intelligence strategies in technology in the business. I think there's a connection to those two sort of compelling defining moments that we're in right now. And what we're saying is, leaders, you have to step up. Right. You're going to be getting challenges. We're going to throw Agile out. Oh, we've achieved it. Right. We don't need to hire Scrum Masters anymore. However the phrasing is. Oh, we're going to get rid of 62% of our workforce with AI. Right. When can we do that? How quickly can we do that? There's youthful enthusiasm. We're at a defining moment now where there's this youthful enthusiasm on the part of boards, on the part of senior leaders. And you're in this leadership level that we've been talking to, and you got to step up. You got to step up. I don't know what you need to say, you do. But the worst thing you can do is just agree. If inside you disagree, but you don't want to go through the battle, and then you just comply. That's the absolute worst thing you can do. Because in these cases, these are major elements of play. These are not minor things, right? AI is a major disruptor right now. And you need to be part of not just saying no, but helping to navigate a sensible strategy, right? That makes sense and includes human beings on both sides. Don't those folks aren't necessarily they're not only missing maybe technical strategy, they're missing humans. and you can help remind them of the human beings as well and the impact of that. Josh, you get the last word. Land this boat.
Yeah. So with that, AI's showing up, changing everything. Yes, it's changing everything. And my challenge to all of our viewers and listeners is there is no easy answer. It's not yes, we're doing it or no, we're not doing it. The answer lives somewhere in the middle. And it's your job to figure out how AI and large language models enhance your organization, the capability for your teams to deliver whatever it is. And when that is a reality, you have a responsibility to put it into play. But you also have a responsibility to not just blindly accept that this is how we're going to do it because that's what a blog article says, or you heard it on a podcast, or you saw a YouTube video, right? That's a recipe for disaster. Or if you want to blindly copy the Facebook of we are now a 1-to-50 ratio, and Coinbase is doing something similar where AI is making it easier for managers to do their job. So now we're going to up the number of people that report to them. We're cutting out layers, which means we're firing a bunch of people. And people will copy that, just as people blindly copied Spotify and people blindly copied Safe. And those that just blindly copy those things that they read about, see other people doing, have not looked under the covers, have not really understood how it worked. A common misconception for the Spotify world, which I was a big fan and used much of it, was that when I talked to Spotify about it, they said, we don't do that stuff anymore. That was written a couple years ago. That's how we did it. We've evolved past then, but still the rest of the world was adopting it and building guilds and building new roles, and chapters were taking over, and it was a common thing. And they're like, we don't even do that anymore because we figured out a better way. But people were copying and pasting. So you cannot copy and paste and expect success. If you want to copy and paste, prepare yourself. You're going to run into a brick wall, and it's not going to be fun. So you have to be what we said a couple episodes ago. You have to be a discerning leader, and you have to be able to figure out what right looks like for your organization. And unfortunately, it probably doesn't look exactly like something that you go read or watch a video about. You're going to have to be thoughtful about how you put these things into practice.
And to land it, you're going to have to apply courage.
We've come full circle.
Yes, we have. And I'm serious, Metacasters. You have to activate your spine and activate your courage. All right, because you're a leader, and we need leaders during this time time of upheaval, and we envision that you can do that. So from beautiful downtown Cary, North Carolina,
and beautiful downtown Fuquay Arena, North Carolina,
I'm Bob the Cowardly Lion Galen.
And I'm Josh Anderson.
Shake
and bake.
Take care, y'all.